Welcome back to Femory Canine Training, and today we're going to answer a few more questions that you guys have sent in about canine training, behaviour, psychology, canine business, anything you're interested at all, and hopefully we'll be able to help you out. Welcome back to Femory Canine Training. If you are new here, I'm Will. I'm a canine behaviourist and I'm the founder of FemoryCanineLeaders.com. Now this little Q&A series is going to be helping answer some of your questions. So without further ado, let's dive into the very first question that is going to be asked by my wonderful wife, Rachel.
I was just going to say, you didn't introduce me then. So the first question is, how do you teach a dog to guard?
Okay, that's... So if you're asking that question, again, this might be a little bit of tough love. If you're asking that question, it shows that you haven't really got any experience with any formal protection or guarding training. And if that's the case, then you should absolutely not be teaching your dog to guard. Formal guarding and protection work, it's not something I specialise in, so it's not something that I talk about. My specialty is with guarding breeds, but it's around behaviour modification for guarding breeds that live within family situations mainly. So I don't necessarily do any formal protection or guarding work. Fascinated by it, I watch a lot of it, I speak to a lot of people that are in that world, but it's definitely something that you need to be a specialist in to really be able to teach. So if you're getting a dog and you want to get involved in formal protection and guarding work, it's an awesome hobby to get involved with, and especially breeds like your shepherds will absolutely thrive on it, and it's a great way to build a good relationship with your dog. But you must be going to a formal guarding and protection training school. There's tons of them with varying kind of different levels, from complete beginners. You can go and do a little bit of sleeve work, a little bit of suit work, a little bit of bark on command is enough for a lot of people, or you can go up to completely kind of formal IPO or protection competition standards, or even into kind of the police and military guarding work. As with anything, there's kind of levels to the game, but there will be training schools near you, so you can put it in on Facebook, put it in on Google, and you can find it. So that's kind of for the formal side of things. Now if you fall into the category, for example, like us, where you want kind of a natural family guardian breed, you don't need to teach that at all, and that's something that I preach about all the time. People far too overestimate how much guarding and protection skills that they actually need from their dogs. The most common kind of concern that vast majority of families would have is people breaking into their home. That's the kind of most common burglary. It's one of the common kind of crimes that can be committed against you, which is horrible. The idea of you being in your bed or your kids being in the bed and someone breaking into your home is obviously is a terrible thought, and it's what a lot of people want a guard dog breed for. To stop that from happening, you don't need any formal protection work. What you need is a dog that is prepared to be a natural watchdog, mostly. Any kind of Mastiff breed, German Shepherd, any of the typical guarding breeds will sound an alarm to alert people that there is somebody sneaking around that shouldn't be there. When the dog sounds an alarm, that burglar 99.9% of the time will disappear. One of the other common ways that people break into people's houses is they'll vet them in advance. This happened a lot in Ralston, where I grew up and where my parents still live, where there was a kind of a bit of a crime spree where people would knock on people's doors posing as like the electricians that check the electric meters. And what they do is they'd ask a few questions. They try and work out, when are you at work, when are you at home, and is there a dog in the house? If there was a dog in the house, they'd scratch it off and they'd move on to the next one. And then within the space of like a few nights, all the houses on one road that didn't have a dog got broken into. So just by the fact of owning a dog was more than enough to stop those houses from being broken into.
Because in terms of like watchdogness, you don't even have to have a typical guarding breed. Like Sully, for example, barks louder than Roxy ever did. So he already acts as that for us.
Yeah.
And like take you at your mum's, for example, they've got a husky and a Jack Russell, not typical guard dogs, but no one's breaking in there.
Yeah, and if there's people lurking around or a delivery man comes, it might set the husky off. She'll start howling a little bit. The Jack Russell will start yapping a little bit. Might not be overly intimidating to a burglar, but they don't want for people to be woken up, so they'll very quickly disappear. Now again, if you want that kind of worst case scenario, if they then still decide to come in, then you're probably going to be wanting to look at a Mastiff breed or a German Shepherd or a Malinois, a breed that is more capable of actual physical protection. But again, you don't need to train them for that. If they sense a genuine threat to their family or their home, those natural inclinations will kick in and they will act if required. Now, the key to that is socialization. A lot of people think, and it's a really common misconception, but it's a terrible one, that to have a dog that's naturally protecting, you shouldn't socialize it much because you don't want them to be overly friendly. That couldn't be farther from the truth. If you've got a natural watching or a natural guarding and protection breed, you want to socialize them as much as possible so that they have a better understanding of friend and foe. Otherwise, those natural inclinations will lean them more to being wary of strangers and thinking that everything's a foe. And then when the postman comes, or your friends come, or your children's come over and they're roughhousing a bit, they'll fire off and those inclinations will kick in. And that's the most common reason that we see dogs attacking children by far. It's something that I get a lot of people coming to me about. It's a horrible situation, but by far that's the most common reason for those really serious behaviours happening. So socialise your dogs as much as possible, socialise your guard dog as much as possible, and you will have a natural guard dog that will act if, God forbid, anything should happen. But if you do want to get into the more formal stuff for kind of hobby or sport, then find a local club, get involved with the club, going down to the different training sessions, and jobs are good. But just make sure you socialise your guard dog breeds, please, because again, you might not have seen it, but I see it every day, and it's heartbreaking when it happens. Don't be the person that's kind of adding to those statistics from a misconception of thinking that if you over-socialise your dog, it's going to be too friendly and won't be a guard dog anymore. It couldn't be further from the truth. But again, I've waffled on that. You've proper got me on my high horse there with that question.
Waffle.
Hi, so we're going to go into the second question, but before we do, remember, if you want to ask any questions and be featured on this Q&A series, we're going to try and do 2 or 3 of these a week on this channel until we get our new English Mastiff puppy. When we get the new English Mastiff puppy, we're going to carry on these Q&As, but then we're also going to go back to kind of the vlog content of following my journey of how I raise English Mastiffs, which segues quite nicely into that, because you'll see just how much emphasis I put on socialisation with a Mastiff breed, even though I'm getting that Mastiff to be a family guardian. So it'll all make sense kind of watching it in real time. But if you want to ask questions, come over to Instagram, you do your thing.
Femria Canine Leaders.
Femria Canine Leaders. She'll put a story up. You can respond to the story. She saves them all on her phone, and then when we sit down and film a few of these at once, Rachel will ask me the questions, and hopefully I can get back to you. So cool. Let's move on to question number 2.
So, second question, what traits to look for in a rescue dog that would lead to him being a good home guardian? Or her?
Him or her are good. So we're looking for a good home guardian from a rescue or a shelter. So first of all, if you're considering rescuing a dog, good for you. That's an incredible thing to do. Now, in terms of the traits that you want to be looking for, it can be, again, you're going to get me on my high horse, and I don't want this video to be 2 hours long.
It's about breed. I would say that just because it's a rescue dog doesn't mean that it's not about breed selection.
Yeah, so so that's perfect. What I was going to say first, so there's kind of 2 things so you can keep me on track and stop me waffling. The first thing we'll talk about is about breed selection, and then the second is about their temperament and characteristics and what we need to do. So first of all, like Rachel said, breed selection is definitely going to be first and foremost. You're going to be wanting to look for a guard dog breed. Now, obviously, if you're watching this, you might follow my other channel, and we've got literally hundreds of videos helping people choose the right breed, what breeds make good guard dog breeds and why. So we won't talk about that now, but you want to obviously first and foremost be looking for a good guard dog breed. Just because they're from a rescue and you haven't raised them doesn't stop them having those internal kind of desires to be protectful and watchful that's just ingrained into the DNA of those kind of breeds. Now, this is going to take me to the bit that's a little bit more complicated, so I'll try not to kind of waffle on and on about it. When dogs go into shelters, oftentimes it causes a lot of change in that dog's life, and one of the most common problems that we see from shelter dogs is that change and that environment and that situation and usually whatever they've gone through that's caused them to be in a shelter causes a lot of anxiety and fear within a dog. Now, when you have anxiety and fear within a guard dog breed, when you've got anxiety and fear, it usually ends up in a dog finding themselves in an anxious or fearful situation, and they'll fight or flight. Now, some breeds are more prone to flight, which tends to be, it's not good, we still need to address that, but it tends to not be dangerous. With a guarding breed, that anxiety and fear can very quickly spill out into fight, which can be very verbal, barking, aggressive behaviours, or even kind of physical behaviours in terms of biting, snapping, or potentially even worse. So when we're looking for traits, obviously look for a breed, and ideally you want to find a dog that isn't displaying any kind of anxious or fearful behaviours. Now, if they are displaying those behaviours, there's a couple of routes that you could take. First of all, you could find a local canine behaviourist that can help you overcome those behaviours. If people come to me when they want to get a dog in a very similar situation to this, I would put them through my boot camp protocol from the second you bring that dog home. That first month with your dog going through my boot camp, which is available on fenrirdogtraining.com, by the way, if you didn't know, will allow you to kind of restructure that relationship. When you restructure that relationship, the dog will understand that you are its calm, consistent leader, and it can look to you for guidance and direction, which is incredibly important with a rescue dog, because you need to have empathy for them, for what kind of a crazy lifestyle change that is for the dog, and inherently it's going to cause anxiety and fear. But if you can instill in that dog that trust in you as a leader, what will happen is that when the dog feels that anxiety and fear bubbling up, rather than going, I don't like this, I'm scared, I better act it out, it can be more along the lines of, I don't like this, I'm scared, what should I do, boss? And having that reaction is incredibly important. Now, once we can get them over that anxiety and fear because of the breed selection that you made, like what Rachel said, then those natural guarding skills will come out, like what we talked about at the start of the video. So I would suggest to kind of not get me on my high horse again. Breed selection is incredibly important, and then ensure that you try and find a dog that isn't displaying any anxiety and fear. And even if they're not, or they are, go through a boot camp style protocol, really restructure that relationship, be a calm, consistent leader, and let that anxiety and fear kind of wash off so that they can trust in you. And then you'll find that those desired behaviours come out of them naturally. And again, going through that boot camp, you can also then layer up the obedience that will allow you to better control the anxiety and fear-based behaviours that often come from adoption or shelter dogs. I don't know if you've got kind of any points.
I do have something to add.
Go on, shut me up for a second.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is, I don't know whether it's the same in other countries, but in this country, a lot of shelters are run by sort of charities and things, and they will be very helpful. They will have history of the dogs where they can, you know, at least the type of home that they were raised in. So if you have a home with children, then you ideally would probably want a dog who has come from a home with children. And they will also be able to help you in terms of behaviours and traits that are being displayed. Now, you know, it is awful in this country. If the dog was showing super aggressive behaviours, you wouldn't be allowed to adopt it.
It would have been put down before you've even met it, usually.
So obviously it might be different in sort of like independent shelters, but as I say, the most common places in the UK to get dogs are from charities. So yeah, just speak to them, get to know them. Don't assume that you're going to choose a dog the first time you go to the shelter. Because they only have, I'm thinking of like our local one, maybe 10 dogs max. And the chances of you finding the perfect one for you on that first time are probably quite slim. You're better looking over a longer space of time, expanding your radar a little bit to charities a bit further away. And yeah, just not rushing into, well, we've decided we want a dog, so we're going to go and get a dog tomorrow. And yeah, taking your time about it.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Perfect. Love it. Again, that's a kind of a really interesting topic that I could talk about for hours, but hopefully that kind of gave a bit of a overarching theme. Again, that might be one of those topics, whereas if you're struggling, seek local professional help. Again, we'll help wherever we can in these videos, but obviously I can't sit and talk for 6 hours, whereas if you find a local behaviourist, especially a balanced one that might specialise more in guarding breeds, they might be able, some fit a service. We don't offer that kind of thing anymore now, we're more based online, but it's very common that behaviourists will come with you to a shelter. You'll have to pay them an hourly rate, and it might take an hour or two of their time, but they will go through that process for you and help that temperament selection for you. So again, that's definitely an option that you can look into there, but it's a very good question. And if that didn't help, or you want more information, then my recommendation would be to go and find a local behaviourist that can kind of help you through that process in person. Would be
I think
the
just
kind of next step.
as a general point to raise, obviously we try and help where we can, but with a lot of very specific situations, without seeing it in person, it's really hard to comment on behaviours.
So don't ever be offended if I can't kind of give you the answer or the quick fix that you were hoping for, because you need to understand that what a lot of owners think is a problem, and that my dog is doing this because of this, how do I fix it? I'm like, well, I need to see it, because you might be wrong, and what you think is the cause probably isn't the cause, and therefore I can't give you a kind of behaviour modification protocol or temperament selection for a puppy in a shelter without being able to see it firsthand. So there's only kind of so far that we can go with YouTube videos, and in certain situations, potentially like this one, it might require someone in person to be able to kind of help you through that process. But again, it's what people like me are for, it's what behaviourists are for, and they enjoy doing it. It's why they do what they do, and they want to help people like you that are taking the decision very seriously. So I do commend you for that. But again,
Waffle,
the king of waffle. I need to get a waffle crown. And if there's somebody that can make crowns,
waffles, or
that's an amazing idea. Someone needs to make me a Belgian waffle crown as the king of waffle. That'd be and then anytime I'm waffling on, you can just put the crown on my head. Amazing, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, comment down below, all that stuff that every YouTuber on the planet says. I really appreciate it. Come over, say hello on Instagram, fire your questions in. This is genuinely probably my favourite thing that we do on YouTube. I love just sitting here and helping people where we can. So with you, obviously. So the more people that ask questions, the more of these videos that we can do. So come over to Instagram, say hello. Can't wait to meet you, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Fenrir Canine Training.